Welcome to Feathers of Wisdom. I'm Stacy, the Black Feather Intuitive. Today our topic is how to choose a tarot deck that's going to work for you. This is a topic after my own heart because I do love cards. I love tarot cards and oracle cards and cards of all kinds. And when I started out on this journey of learning how to read tarot for myself and reading for others, I went out and bought a Rider-Waite deck, and that is considered one of the more popular decks, a more traditional deck that a lot of other decks are based off of. And I started the process through memorization, and that didn't work so well for me. Not to say that that isn't the way that, that a lot of people can learn how to read the cards, it just didn't work for me. And I found that when I was working with these cards, I was looking at the pictures and just everything was just a big mystery. And I didn't really understand what I was looking at, what I was supposed to look at, what I was supposed to get. And it became very frustrating, and I just thought I, wasn't able to read cards. And as I progressed, and I started really opening up my intuitive abilities and the psychic side of me, I learned that there was a totally different way that I could read these cards, and the reason why the memorization wasn't working for me was because I was intuitive and my brain gets in the way. So I had to read it through my third eye. I had to read from my heart, and that worked out really well for me. But one of the things that I needed to consider in order to be able to do that was finding a deck that worked for me, finding a deck that spoke to me. And the traditional Rider-Waite deck was not it. I feel that in order for you to really read cards well and read from an intuitive perspective, as well as from the knowledge of the traditional way the tarot was created, with its sort of storyline and patterns and things, you have to really have a relationship and build a relationship with your cards. They have to speak to you. Why do we even want to use tarot? What is the purpose of tarot? Well, tarot helps us, in my opinion, it helps us to unlock our IGs, our inner guidance. We're all born with a built-in GPS, inner guidance system. And sometimes we just have to learn how our bodies work and understand how we're receiving the messages and the information. With tarot, there are so many different factors in choosing a card. There are as many sizes and shapes and colors and styles of artwork, and I mean, it's kind of ridiculous actually. So it's like swimming in this, the needle in the haystack, or swimming in this ginormous sea looking for one specific fish, finding Nemo. It can be really daunting. But it doesn't need to be. It can be a lot of fun. So how do you figure out which one works for you? There's so much choice, obviously, so much option. How do you figure which one works for you? So here are some things to consider. These were things that I considered when I was choosing tarot decks that were really going to work for me, especially given that I use them in my work. I use them to give readings and provide a tangible visual for my clients to really receive the messages that they're being given. So when choosing a deck, consider these things. Does the artwork on each card tell a story? So when I pull this card, the Nine of Swords, what story is this telling me? There are a lot of card decks that just have 9 swords on a card. What story does that tell you? You're like, okay, well, if it was the 8th card, it would have 8 swords on this card. So what is it telling me? This card tells me a story. I'm seeing someone who is looking up into the sky, and they're watching all of these birds going by. And depending on the perspective that I am choosing to take, or that I notice right away, obviously I'm seeing an angel. And right now, the way I'm looking at it, the angel has released these birds. The angel is looking at these birds that have been released, and there's one that's staying behind. Another perspective that I could see this card as is the birds are coming down at me, and I don't know what to do. There's this, sort of vortex raining down on me, and oh my God, am I scared? Am I looking forward to it? Are they friendly? Are they my enemies? Obviously I have a weapon in my hand here. What am I using that for? Am I prepared to use it? Am I not prepared to use it? So it's really about interpreting for yourself what the story of the card is. And that can come through the artwork. For example, Apprentice of Stone. So you're looking at this card, and there are no people per se in this card, but there are stone figures and images. So you look at the card, what do you see? What do you notice? Are you noticing the colors? Are you drawn to, is there a feeling around the card? For me, when I look at this, it feels serene. It's peaceful. It's a wonderful night sky. It's a place where I would enjoy going for a meditation, that kind of thing. So it's about a feeling versus, you know, the story per se that it's saying. I might look at this card differently in another reading and notice the people first. And the people have a message for me. Either it's about ancestors, or it could be people in someone's life that I'm giving a reading for that stand out to me. Grandparents. It could, you know, it could mean a number of different things. The point is, the picture stimulates a story for me. It tells me a story. It gives me that sort of inspiration and that information to go on. Another thing to consider is, does the artwork on the card appeal to you visually? This is very, very important. When I got the Rider-Waite deck, I was very excited because it was my first tarot deck, and I was very drawn to that. And I have seen others and had gone to other readers who used that deck. So I had no idea that there were other options out there, and I thought that was the deck. And when I looked at the pictures, they really just, there was nothing. I was looking at a pretty picture of these old people doing weird things on a card, and they didn't really speak to me. The artwork wasn't, even the colors, it was very primary colors based. And I mean, as you can see from my background, I'm all about color, and I'm all about bright, bold, sort of jewel tones. I like really pretty things, ornate things, things with frills and swirls and, you know, all sorts of things. So that's my personal thing. So looking at the Rider-Waite, that was almost like, I felt like blocks of color and stagnant figures. It really didn't speak to me, whereas some of these other decks really do. Again, I'll bring up the Shadowscapes. So when I first saw this deck, I went online and I saw these pictures. Oh, let me tell you, I just fell in love. I was very drawn to the artwork in these cards. I said, oh, these are so beautiful. You know, I would love to have an original painting of some of these cards. So that is a true sign when you see an image and you go, oh, that's so beautiful. And you look at card after card after card, and you're like, wow, these are beautiful. That is a good sign that that deck is going to work really well for you. Here's another thing to consider. When you take an individual card, does it speak to you? So let me pull the Six of Flames here. Does this card speak to me? So this whole deck speaks to me. I love this deck. It's got great energy. What it speaks to me of here is I'm looking at this one hand sort of coming out of the darkness. It's people, all of these people here sitting, looking to congregate, looking to join, looking to be a part of, looking to learn, looking to follow. And there's a leader. We've got a leader right here whose light is brighter and larger than all of these other flames. And when these flames join with this light, the flame just gets bigger and bigger and brighter. And so it really is about being a light, leading with your light, sharing your light, because we all are teachers as well as students in the school of life. So yes, this card speaks to me. This card may not speak to you. You may look at it and go, okay, there's 5 little, lit matches and a torch. Woohoo! What does that mean? So if that's what happens for you, then this is not the deck for you. This is not the card for you. When you are looking at a card like this, and you're saying, okay, does this card speak to me? You also want to look at it and say, what impressions am I getting from it? There may be just an overall feeling that you get about the card. That has nothing to do with what is on the card. It's just an overall feeling, and you suddenly just know what it's about. Or you look at a card and you immediately get an impression. So this card has dolphins on it, and immediately I go to an experience that I had swimming with the dolphins in Roatan. When I look at the dolphins. And what was the experience I had there? Pure joy. I was giddy, like giddy as a schoolgirl. And so that is a message in itself, is I'm receiving okay, when I'm pulling this card and I'm looking at this card symbolizes giddy joy. So it's all about, does this card give you an image? Does this leave a lasting impression on you? And when you have a deck that has multiple cards that are leaving a lasting impression on you, that's a good sign that it's going to work for you. Do you prefer keywords or symbolic figures? So this is a really good example here. So we have, in the traditional tarot, we have the Magician card. I also have another card in, of course I don't have it here right on top, but in the Starseed deck, this card, the Magician, is actually called Indigo, and it's the face of a child with these bright blue eyes staring at you, and it's indigo. Indigo is symbolizing the Magician. It just has a different energy. So that is definitely something you're going to want to consider when you're looking at that. Also, with the Osho Zen, this is why I really like the Osho Zen deck, that it gives you this key word, comparison. So it's giving you an idea about what that card represents, the essence of the meaning of that card. So it's about comparison, and there are many different aspects of comparison that you can consider, that you might receive information and guidance on when doing a reading for yourself or others. Do you want to read the cards intuitively or from memory? This is another thing. If you want to read the cards from memory, you're literally going to pick any deck that you want, and you're going to memorize the meaning behind each of those cards. And every deck is different. Every deck is going to give you a different perspective on the same guidance. So from that perspective, if you're going from a memory perspective, you definitely want to make sure that you're enjoying looking at the cards, because you're going to be looking at them a lot. You're going to be studying each card intensely. You're going to be doing a lot of memorization around all of the multifacets of that card. If you're reading intuitively, the messages and the information are just going to come to you exactly how they're supposed to be in that moment. So it just depends on how you're choosing to use your deck. Okay, here's another kind of a weird but important consideration is, how big are your hands? Where are you comfortable with working with the cards? Are you going to want to shuffle every time? Are you going to be okay with sort of plopping them down into piles and reorganizing? Are you okay with throwing them on the table and just, chaos everywhere and then throwing them back? If it's important for you to shuffle traditionally, then a larger deck like the Syrian Starseed deck may not be a comfortable deck for you to work with, because it's ginormous. You might prefer, the size of the Osho Zen, or something that's a little more traditional in size with the tarot. And every deck is going to be different. There are decks that are round shaped. I've seen decks that are heart shaped. Decks that are actually clear, they're see-through. There's all different types. So it's just a matter of what are you going to be comfortable working with. And that is definitely a consideration to make. So how do you view your deck online? How do you know what it feels like in your hands? If you are going to a metaphysical store and you have the opportunity, oftentimes they will open the decks for you so that you can see the cards and feel the cards. That's a great way of doing it. If you're ordering online, here's a suggestion for you. Go to a website called eclectic.net. AECLECTIC.net. This is, it's got every single tarot deck out there, and it does a review, and it will show anywhere from 3 to 7 cards. So it gives you a nice preview of the card deck so that you can get an idea of what the artwork looks like and how it's speaking to you. Also, you can Google images and pictures of these card decks as well before you go ahead and make your purchases. This is what I do as well, because visually the artwork is very important to me. And I want to make sure that I like more than just 1 or 2 of the cards. I think that is it. That is all I've got for you today. I hope this was really helpful in terms of working towards picking out a card deck that's really going to work for you. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.